Imagine not only facing your biggest fear, but imagine welcoming it into your life. I'm not kidding. If you truly want to conquer anxiety, you have to be willing to embrace it. It sounds kind of backwards, doesn't it? Everything inside of us screams that we want to get rid of it. We want to get rid of anxiety, avoid discomfort, stay safe. But research and experts like Dr. Reid Wilson, Dr. Jonathan Grayson, Jon Hershfield discovered that the real path to conquering OCD and anxiety lies in facing and even inviting discomfort into our lives. And if you do this right, you can completely change the way anxiety impacts you. By the end of the video, you'll understand exactly how to adopt this bring it on attitude towards anxiety. But more importantly, you'll see that this paradoxical approach, inviting your fears, embracing uncertainty, and radically shifting your perspective has the power to reduce anxiety's grip on your life dramatically. Anxiety and OCD, they don't just thrive on fear. They thrive on avoidance and a desire for certainty, knowing, and safety. So every time we try to protect ourselves by avoiding those triggers, asking for reassurance, ruminating, or performing rituals, we're reinforcing anxiety's power over us. The right attitude involves a complete shift, embracing uncertainty, rejecting those safety behaviors, and engaging in exposures that confront your fears. Let's dive into this attitude shift by looking at what some of the top experts in the field say. Dr. Reid Wilson, author of Stopping the Noise in Your Head, is known for a bold, paradoxical approach. Now, his approach, more than any other, has greatly inspired my clinical work and how I work with people with OCD and anxiety conditions for over 20 years. He encourages people to adopt what he calls a bring it on attitude toward their fears. Dr. Wilson often describes treating anxiety as a game where the goal is to go after and embrace the worst case imagined scenarios rather than avoid them. So he uses a lot of sports metaphors because in a way he's asking us to compete against our anxiety. Imagine anxiety as a basketball opponent. Every time it tries to fake you out with a threat, like what if something goes wrong or what if you can't handle it? Instead of backing away and protecting yourself, you say, give me everything you've got. Now, this attitude is about putting yourself in the driver's seat. You're choosing to face fears and saying, come on, anxiety, hit me with your best shot. I'm ready. Sarah is someone who struggled with an intense fear around contamination. Now, with Dr. Winston's approach, she didn't just face her fear of germs. She actively sought it out. Rather than even avoiding potentially dirty surfaces, she touched them willingly, often saying to herself, hey, if germs are so scary, let's see if they can harm me. Now, over time, Sarah's anxiety started to shrink because she took the power back from her fears. And Dr. Jonathan Grayson, in his book, Freedom from Obsessive Compulsive Disorder, he teaches the critical concept of living with uncertainty. Now, anxiety disorders, they often hinge on our craving for certainty. We feel as if we need to know that everything will be okay, that we'll be safe, that we won't regret our choices, or that the bad things won't happen. But Dr. Grayson suggests by accepting and tolerating uncertainty, we weaken the power of OCD and anxiety. So instead of repeatedly seeking out reassurance or engaging in compulsions, Dr. Grayson encourages his clients to lean into and tolerate the unknown. He suggests that one of the best attitudes we can have is, maybe this bad thing could happen and maybe I won't know for sure. Imagine Alex, who had an intense fear that he would do something negligent and in some way cause something bad to happen. Now, he'd inspect locks multiple times before leaving or going to bed, and he could get stuck in his checking compulsions for hours. Dr. Grayson worked with him to adopt an attitude of maybe or maybe not, And Alex had to practice saying, maybe I locked the door. Maybe I didn't. I can't be 100% sure. So over time, this shift allowed him to let go of his compulsions and experience relief. Now, Jon Hershfield is the author of the Mindfulness Workbook for OCD, and he brings a mindfulness-based approach to the table. Now, Hershfield emphasizes that the anxiety-provoking thoughts are simply thoughts. They're just mental events that don't have to be taken so seriously. So by adopting a non-judgmental awareness, we learn to observe our thoughts and feelings without attaching meaning to them. Hershfield's approach encourages people to say, I notice that I'm having this thought, rather than I have to stop this thought. Now, it's a subtle shift, but it makes a world of difference. When we adopt an attitude of curiosity, openness, rather than judgment, we begin to detach from the anxiety. So by viewing these thoughts from a distance, their power over us diminishes. Lisa struggled with the obsessive fear that she might accidentally say something offensive in social situations. Jon Hershfield encouraged her to take a mindful observer stance. Instead of trying to control or analyze her thoughts, she learned to say, oh, there's that fear again popping up. She just noticed it. And over time, this non-judgmental awareness allowed her to move through social settings easier without feeling so overwhelmed that she might make a mistake. So the more you lean in with willingness to allow the discomfort, the less it controls you. Now, another great book that I really recommend to all therapists is Drs. Seif and Winston's What Every Therapist Needs to Know About Anxiety Disorders. Now, Seif and Winston teach that one of the most liberating attitudes that you can adopt is it's okay to feel anxious. Instead of trying to escape the discomfort, we accept it as part of the human experience. The truth is, anxiety and OCD are very convincing storytellers. They spin these stories about the need for certainty, how terrible it is to be anxious, but Dr. Seif and Winston suggest doing the opposite of what anxiety tells you to do. They call it the paradoxical effect. So the more we try to resist anxiety, the stronger it becomes. Instead, Seif and Winston encourage us to take the approach that says, hey, it's fine if anxiety is here. It doesn't have to mean anything. And this acceptance diffuses the emotional response that feeds anxiety. So let's look at Rob. Now, Rob has intense health anxiety. He constantly checked his body for symptoms that, he was worried that something might be terribly wrong with him. Seif and Winston encouraged him to take a new stance. Instead of checking, he practiced saying, well, if I get sick, I guess I'll have to handle it then. So he had to embrace the uncomfortable what ifs, and through that, he began to see his fears lessen. So here's the next step. Ask yourself, what would happen if I changed my attitude towards anxiety, panic, OCD, or health anxiety, and I stopped avoiding my fears? If you're ready, head over to PaigePradko.com for resources and support. They're designed to help you learn the tools and change your attitude and build resilience in the face of OCD, health anxiety, panic, and agoraphobia. Remember, recovery is possible when you shift your perspective. Anxiety and OCD, they might seem powerful now, but with the right tools and attitude, you can get back to having a more fulfilling, a more peaceful life. You don't have to do it alone. Check out the resources at PaigePradko.com. I'm here to help you. Until next time, take care.